Hey, welcome to the Story Studio podcast. This is magical number 100, which,
Yay!
What?
if you're paying attention, it's kind of funny because usually 100 is a landmark and you're like, we got to 100. Now let's go into 200. But we never actually get to 200. We just restart. So we did, I don't know how many, does anybody know how many self-publishing podcasts we did?
There were like 200 and.
Oh, well, fuck that chain of logic then. So we did get to 200 once, but like we've gotten to 100 like 3 or 4 different times because we also
start a new show.
We just start a new show, like worst. What was the name of that podcast?
Undead?
Better Off Undead, and then we made it worst show ever.
That's hilarious.
Had to restart.
We got up to 298.
Oh no!
Which is so awesome. That's just like quitting. We didn't even just do 2.
It's like me in high school.
Right, me too, bro. How hard would it have been to just do 2 episodes back to back? It's like farewell episodes. That shows where we were. Like
we were running out of shit to do. Yeah, I mean it's interesting because the show, and this is a little bit inside baseball, but I think the audience might kind of care a little bit. It was hard to find the show's direction. The show went through this kind of like midlife crisis where, I mean, I don't know about these guys.
Well, no. Years old.
Well, Dave always hated it. Like Dave, it really isn't a question of what Dave did. Dave
I had a midlife crisis at birth.
I don't know where Sean was, but I was starting like, if I don't see the purpose of something, it's really, really hard for me to do it. Like I need purpose from the beginning. Otherwise I don't know where to steer.
I could have kept rolling and having fun, but it was hard to have fun with you always looking for purpose.
Yeah,
Right,
I
see-
feel like this speaks to like marriage. Like you need purpose. Sean's like, I could just roll and have fun. Like Sean can make anything good, and
Yeah, it's interesting because
I'm reading
at
a
the
lot into
time, I remember kind of trying to figure it out and it seemed a little mysterious, but in retrospect, it's so obvious. You were like, fun is the purpose. And I'm like, motherfucker, fun isn't purpose.
But fun is purpose. You just have to decide its purpose. And my bottom line on this for a long time, I mean, officially like a year now, has been we do our very best job. We grow our company. We stay insulated and make great decisions for ourselves and for our authors. And then we are as generous with sharing what we've learned and how we've grown as we possibly can be. But have fun doing it because otherwise there's no point. And I really, really love taking the transactional nature out of our relationship with any audience. That if it's not, $5 is $5, but whatever, beyond a book, there's nothing. It's just we're doing our jobs here.
All right. Well, I could debate the point of fun as a purpose all day, but hey, we have a show to do.
Note to self: don't invite Johnny to orgies.
Oh, well, but see, there you can decide it. I'm going to go down this whole thing now. I mean, in all the orgies I've done anyway.
There has to be a purpose. I'm here.
I had to stop. I was recording the Fiction Formula audiobook before I got in here. And oh my God, like maybe rethinking the decision to record our own audiobooks. I mean, it's cool and stuff, but oh my God, I'm almost halfway, almost. And it's been like forever.
Joel's with you right now. Joel, how do you feel about that?
The house needs to be totally quiet. So there's only defined periods I can do it, like a couple days a week.
You
like
should just yell at them and leave it in the edit so people get like, fun. Shut the fuck up!
You know what? You could actually that is shrill, dude. You could actually get away with that though. Seriously. Like you could.
I think it would be funny. Yeah. When I was doing this at the beginning, like I was just determined every day, every afternoon, I'm going to do it till it's done. And, there was a day when I came out and I said to Robin, I was like,
Dave approaches every interaction with his wife.
I came out and I said, are you going to be doing that for a while? And I forget what it was. It was like typing or
breathing.
Something. Yeah, it was something like that. And she hung in there with me a little bit. And then she was eventually like, I do have work to do. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's valid. Maybe I can't expect everybody to be totally silent the whole time. So anyway, that was my thing. I want to go last with something cool because my something cool is really fucking cool.
Oh, it is really fucking cool.
Yeah, I think Dave doesn't know it either because he doesn't visit the company.
Yeah, no, that's true. He has no idea. He has no idea because he hates us.
We have a company?
Yes, we do. A surprisingly strong one all of a sudden. Yeah, I'll go with something cool. I had a date night last night, and I saw a movie I really liked. It was...
Wait. Let's guess. Faces of Death 17.
Serbian film 2, Electric Boogaloo.
No, The Turning. Have you guys heard of The Turning?
No.
Wait.
I'm just kidding.
I was just saying that got shit reviews, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it got the worst, like some of the worst reviews in like 20 years.
Oh, that's the worst joke ever. Like you said it and I didn't even know. Oh, okay, that's funny.
Well,
we should build a podcast around it.
I said it for Dave because I knew he would know because it just looks like, so I don't know if, okay, so January is historically the month where studios dump stuff that didn't work out during the year. So like I knew Doolittle was going to be was a steamy pile of shit because
here's our abortions we couldn't pay for.
Yeah, totally. So it's I think the first week of January, and it's the first time I've seen a trailer for Doolittle. We're in the theater and it's like coming January, and I'm like, oh, so they spent $150 million on this movie that's coming out after Christmas? Like, no.
Family film. Let's not deliver it at Christmas.
Yeah. So it has like an 18%. But anyway, The Turning is the horror version of that. It's just gotten like the worst reviews. No, in reality, it was The Gentleman, which
another movie I've heard of.
Okay, so it's Guy Ritchie. Do you know Guy Ritchie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so it's Guy Ritchie, and it's the first time he's gone back and made like a gangster film. I think since Snatch. Even though he has like English gangster, he basically turned King Arthur into
hold on.
gangster.
Dave, do you want to make a joke about Snatch before we continue?
Okay,
just
mature. We're
100
now.
All right, you're right. We are on show 100.
Okay, well, speaking of maturity, that's actually interesting because I really liked this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I've always I like his English gangster energy. His movies,
but ...
So the only negative, it's clever. I really like Matthew McConaughey in it. I really like Colin Farrell. I love Hugh Grant in it. He's great. It has a really fun energy to it. And Matthew McConaughey is basically a weed kingpin in the UK. And
wait, did he do a UK accent?
No, because he's an American who's living.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I'm going to go see that right now.
No. They actually did it cool. He was an American.
Hello.
All right.
No, he grew up poor as a poor American, and he got a scholarship to Oxford. But he basically fit in by being the cool American and selling them weed. And then he built a huge empire, like becoming friends with lords and shit. It's kind of cool. He dresses like a dapper Englishman, but he's American, and he's Matthew McConaughey.
He drives around in a Cadillac.
No, he has a driver who drives him in a Denali or something. I don't know.
TV commercial joke.
Oh, I got it.
Or is it Oldsmobile? I don't remember.
I thought it was Cadillac.
Okay. It's a Lincoln. That's why that's not funny.
Cars.
You have to get the car right.
Well, and apparently the commercial's really doing their job since none of us can agree what it is.
I'm not a car guy.
It's a Lincoln. So anyway.
And if they want that to stick amongst Oldsmobile and Buick and all that other shit, he needs to dress like Lincoln so that you remember it.
And then get shot at a theater.
Right. I'd remember that.
Anyway, I really like it. I think you guys would really like it. I think anyone who likes fast moving kind of gangster films would like it. It's fun.
All right, my something cool is The Outsider on HBO. I think it was my something cool last week before I saw it, and now I have seen it, and I'm enjoying it.
Okay, so
it was a pretty short something cool.
Yeah.
Well, no, I got more. I was just waiting to see if anybody had a question.
No, all right.
Or be just a few episodes in, right? You can't see the whole thing yet.
4 episodes in, and
wait, a show that doesn't release a full season at a time? Do they still do those?
It's HBO.
It's HBO.
And I always talk about how much I love weekly serials, and I do, but now that I'm just used to binging everything, I'm like, well, fuck, I don't want to wait now. So it's kind of like True Detective, but with a supernatural twist.
Yeah,
and
that's the book too.
Here's the thing, I have a feeling I know what the show's going to do, and I won't spoil it. I think it'll be, your typical sort of story, but the way they get there is what makes it interesting. And, there's all this mystery. You don't know what the fuck is going on. And there's some cool, creepy scenes. And most of all, I really enjoy the not knowing what's going on. I have a feeling once I know what's going on, I'll be like, okay, well, let's get this shit over with. But I'm enjoying it a lot so far. So.
That actually happened to me with the real book.
Oh, okay. So you know what it is. Okay.
Well, yeah, and I think I talked about this a little bit last week. My attraction to the book was actually the Holly Gibney character. which I don't even think has probably shown up yet. If
she's in the 3rd episode actually of this, and I love her character.
Okay.
She's so odd and weird and cool.
Yeah, she's great on the page, but she's from the Mr. Mercedes series. So the only reason that I'm glad that they put her on the 3rd episode. That means they had to write her in earlier.
She's a different actress than in the TV show.
Well, that would make sense. I mean,
okay,
whatever. It's a different production.
I looked it up. It's completely different. It's a white blonde woman in the other show, and it's a black lady with dreads in this show.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
Complete 180.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
I don't know how the other character is, but she's my favorite thing about the show so far. She's so odd and weird, and I love it because I don't know what the fuck's up with her.
Yeah, well, she has a little bit of Rain Man in her, and in Mr. Mercedes, it's actually very interesting. You get to know her a lot. She basically comes from a wealthy family, and they just like overprotect her constantly. And that series is where she like comes into her own, and she gets to work with a detective, and she realizes that she's very good at this. You know, she's very good at like looking at the details, and she was just a great character, and I wanted more of her, but she actually doesn't come into The Outsider until much, much later than it sounds like she is in the show.
Oh yeah, they brought her in early on this, and that's good.
That's a good move.
And it made me want to go watch Mr. Mercedes, but then I saw it was on AT&T. I'm like, who the fuck has that shit?
You will next year. AT&T is HBO Max.
Oh, all right. So I'll see it next year.
AT&T owns HBO, so as soon as they consolidate, like Warner Brothers, HBO, all of that shit, AT&T, it'll just all come together.
Well, you should start putting that shit on HBO now, man.
Yeah, well, that's why they have the rights to, both books,
right.
I guess.
Yeah, you guys don't understand why I get pissed off about the streaming wars, but I have this new thing where like I have one show at a time that I'm watching on my own. Like I finally carved out time and I just watch like 20 minutes a night or something. And so I'd been watching Santa Clarita Diet and I reached the end. And so I'm like, okay, now I have a bunch of shit I want to watch. So I'd been seeing ads for that Picard show. So I'm like, awesome. It's on
CBS,
fucking CBS All Access. I'm like, well, fuck you then. So I'm like, okay, Watchmen. I'd been wanting to watch Watchmen. HBO. Like, I don't have HBO either. So I just gave up and I'm watching the one that Neve recommended to us, The Patriot. But it's just like, what the fuck? I have to subscribe to everything?
I put that one on my list, The Patriot. Yeah, I get the. I've had some pretty good recommendations from the Something Cool channel lately. That Happened, Leonard. I want to watch that too. Have you watched that, Dave?
Which one?
Happen Leonard. I think that was a neat recommendation too.
I don't even know what that is. It sounds like two old dudes.
No, dude, it has Omar in it.
Oh, okay. I'll watch anything with him.
Yeah, it has Omar in it, but he looks like he's not playing his usual Omar.
Omar Vizquel used to play for the Cleveland Indians as shortstop. My Something Cool is really fucking cool.
Do you need a drum roll for this or anything?
I do kind of need a drum roll for it. So we've been playing kind of like it's been a long thing and we've been kind of coy about what's been going on with TV and film. But I did get confirmation and an okay to talk about it this week that Fat Vampire's pilot has officially sold to CBS Universal. No, sorry.
NBC.
There you go. I had CBS on the head.
Because you were just talking about Picard.
I was just talking about them. So it did, and they said, but it's fine. Like it's supposed to keep it small. Like we're not supposed to go out and like take out press releases. Not that we do that, but that is apparently an official thing. And I don't know what it means for the timeline or anything like that. But yeah, they sold that to NBC, which is a really great home, I think. I don't want to say anything more than that. But anyway, that's my Something Cool.
Yeah, that's good for now. But yeah, it looks like we have two television projects in various stages. So, we have three TV/film projects in various stages, but there's two now that we are allowed to talk about, which is really fun. Yeah. So
yeah, and I assume the other Savannah Banana, since we've had those guests on, but we can't talk about like details on that one yet or anything. Yeah. And there hasn't been an official sale, although I would say that that's just a matter of a rather short period of time, I would think, before that's an official thing too.
Well, congratulations, and I hope that this means that we'll soon be seeing Decoy Wallet the series.
I think so.
We hope so.
That's my biggest hope. Fuck, yesterday's gone. I want Decoy Wallet.
Dude, have you read Decoy Wallet yet?
I did. I think so. Yeah.
No, you didn't.
No. You watched Redacted.
You read Redacted. You read Redacted.
Oh, okay.
Decoy Wallet is like a short story version of Confederate of Dunces.
I was just going to say Confederacy of Dunces. That was exactly what we used.
With there's even a bad guy. The bad guy's name is Champado, which means I punch your face. And he's like the bad gangster. But I know that doesn't sound funny. It is.
Listen
funny.
to Dave humor you. Kind of neat. All right. So today's show.
I'm sending it to you right now.
No.
Today's show is, we called it what we've stopped doing. And it's a marketing show, right? Like this is, yeah, we have stopped caring. But it's
trying.
So this is actually going to be perfect for
You
Dave.
haven't stopped crying.
No, trying, not crying.
Oh, okay. I agree with that.
I think this is going to be perfect for Dave because he's not going to know any of the shit that we stopped doing, but I think he's going to applaud the fact that we stopped doing it.
I agree with that. That sounds just about perfect.
So, I mean, this is kind of an
You should like make up things that you stop doing. And see
You'll never know otherwise.
Things we considered and decided not to do because it just seemed illegal. So things we've stopped doing, the marketing things we've stopped doing. How do you want to begin this discussion? Because it's kind of meant to be, like amorphous, right? Because it's a bunch of stuff. Like we stopped doing a lot of the things that had to do anything with Smarter Artist.
Yeah, we can start with just kind of a why we dropped everything. Because last year was...
And we are talking about books as well. I don't want everybody to think this is about what we stopped doing as Smarter Artist.
Right. No, this is I think mostly about what we stopped doing with books. Because a year ago, it's funny, we've actually been having these conversations a lot. Because a year ago we were like, we're ready to go. And we had
just a little teaser too. The year before that, we were like, we're ready to go.
Yes, but the difference is we weren't just ready to go theoretically last year. We actually had writers in house, and we were starting to build some of those things, but our team wasn't really complete. I mean, this time last year, we were still a couple of weeks away from meeting Neve, which is a big deal. That was a big evolutionary thing for our company.
I would say linchpin. Our two chief marketing people were not with us yet.
Yeah, and we didn't have. I mean, they both transformed the company. And Bonnie was just, a couple months like heavy working with us. So it's
not that Bonnie was in the marketing.
No, but she was in the production, and we had a lot of. It's how it all ties together, because one of the conversations that Neve and I just had yesterday, actually yesterday, was about the goal of trying to get the rest of this year done, because then we can really separate it. Once we're starting to work on 2021 product, like production and publication are two separate departments completely. And it'd be nice to, put a little more of a chasm between those. And I think we can. And that's exciting. Last year, it was all just like getting to stuff as fast as we possibly could. And we had, some people in the wrong seats. We were actually publishing stuff last year that had zero back matter, which we didn't even know until now when we're, republishing things. I'm like, wow, that's just crazy. So now we're able to, kind of dot all our I's and cross all our T's. And, we made several decisions last year of like, okay, let's slow down, because once we start turning a flywheel, we don't want to stop. So
fucking hard, by the way. Like, let's just be clear. It's not like this was like, oh, let's make our measured decision as we sit around the fire sipping our cognac to delay that. Like, no, like we needed that shit to be going, but it just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, and there's every author in the studio wants to see their books coming out, and so it's important, and we have to. Yeah,
last year was that scene in Fight Club where we just kept telling the authors who came to our Paper Street house, "Go away, you're not allowed in." Like that was what last year was. Okay, I'll stick around and keep writing books, even though you won't release them.
So now we can actually do an effective job for them, and last year was we started out the year very heavy on marketing. We're going to go fast. We're going to play the algorithms. We're going to have relationships with Apple and other vendors. We're going to have somebody who's, driven behind the marketing to, really put their all behind it. But none of those things really panned out because we just didn't have the systems in place. And, passion is a really big deal. And, our marketing director now is passionate. Like, she wants to change the way books are sold online. Like, it's mission driven, and you just can't buy that. So, like, I mean, I'm always willing to give, my time to Neve because it's always well spent. So this morning, like, I don't like giving up maker time, but I gave up maker time this morning because we were talking about launches and calendars and how to do it right. And Neve's like, I'm sorry I'm taking your time. I just really want to understand. I want to understand this. And that's the thing. As soon as she understands something, like, it's great forever. And then we can continue to build and build and build and build. So I think the biggest thing that we don't do anymore is play it by ear, or, run so fast that we're tripping on our feet. It's about slowing down, making sure that we have the process in place before we go forward so that we can repeat it. I don't think we've done anything in 6 months that isn't repeatable, as far as, once we build the system, we can do it over and over and over again.
I was pausing because Dave is very close to the microphone, as if smelling it, as if it's delicious. And I thought he might say something there. So
no,
he's like, "Why would you think that, dumbass?"
I'm just listening and reading the chat here.
Do you remember the time? I think we had a meeting or something, and Dave attended, but he was in full kickback mode. He like had his feet up on the desk. He was eating chips. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, that sounds like Dave.
That sounds about right. So one of the things that I think, because we're talking about sort of what works and what doesn't work anymore for us, right? Like, your mileage may vary. But one of the things that comes to mind for me is last year this time, Marie actually mentioned this in our internal chat here, that we were waiting for some reps. Like, we had everything lined up and we were like, okay, we're ready for you to feature us. We're ready for you to pull levers for us. And I think that there's been a subtle shift there wherein we still want to meet and get attention from reps. We still want to, try and get them to feature us. But it was more like waiting for somebody to save us is probably the best metaphor in the past, waiting for somebody else to make things happen for us. And now it's like, well, no, we're like, we want that. We still want reps to do that, but we're not going to sit around and wait. Okay.
We will never strategize around other people. We have to do what's best for our authors, for our studio, for our momentum, for all of that. And that's the thing. We have strategized around what other people have said they will do for us, whether that's internal people who are working as partners, or external merchandising opportunities, or whatever. We just need people who are really in it long term. We're going to build this thing, and that's what we have for the first time, and we're starting to see the results of that, and they're coming fast. So that's really, really exciting.
So what would you say are some of the other things that we used to do that used to be sort of cornerstones for us or for the industry of sort of how we thought books were sold or how we used to sell books, but that we're kind of not doing anymore? I mean, obviously KDP Select has changed the game. It's just such a big discussion.
Yeah, it is. So I would say the biggest thing is just the approach that we have, which, so right now, a lot of people are making money on, who are making money with self-publishing are running ads, right? It's pretty hard for an unknown author to just make money unless they really put a lot of time in, get a lot of content out there. They have connections. If they're just out on their own and you're not running any ads, it's kind of a good luck situation. So for us, we actually stopped running ads entirely because it's dangerous to just run ads when you don't have things in place. So, and what we've done is make sure that all of our lines are clean and what they're supposed to be. We have a lot of new pen names coming out. We have a lot of work that we've done to make everything right on the story level and on the reader journey level. And so now when we are going to run ads to that stuff, we want to make sure our back catalog is taken care of. And, we're nudging readers towards other authors or other books, that within our sphere that would make sense for them. And so it's a lot of work on the front end to make sure that those webs make sense on a whiteboard. And, only then can we throw a ton of money at ads, and we'll start doing that. And we have, an amazing optimization person, and, we will be able to hack our ads, but we don't want to do it when, basically we were working with flawed data because we just weren't clean enough. And I think that's something that...
Speaking of Picard, wasn't Flawed Data one of the characters where he went evil or something?
Yes, I believe so.
It's like Bizarro Data.
But I think that that's an area where we both have totally stopped putting attention that actually needs our attention, but it was on purpose. It's not like we stopped doing ads because we didn't care or we didn't think they were important. It's because we look around and we see a lot of people spending or wasting a lot of money getting ads wrong and just kind of making more problems for themselves down the road. And it made a lot more sense for us to take inventory, really clean out all of it, our metadata, our author profiles, everything, and make sure that now when we run ads, we'll actually be, focused on it.
Marie pointed out something that I'm a little ashamed I didn't think to reference, and that is that flawed data would be lore. I just wanted to put that out there. So where do you think the role of like write, publish, repeat stands today? Because that used to be like when we published write, publish, repeat, originally it was 2013, I believe. And if, as we're recording this, it's like 7 years ago, which is 500 centuries in real time when you're not just on the internet doing self-publishing. And the mantra there sort of was, it's all about math. You put something out, it's going to make $6. And so you put out 600 things and, it was just about math and just about kind of doggedly continuing to do the work. I think that approach is still very much valid, but not by itself. Like you can't just write, publish, and repeat anymore. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, overall, yes, you still need to write, publish, and repeat. That is still the very basic formula. But for us, it's not about speed at all. It is about consistency. So okay, that's a good place to start.
Consistency is a really good point.
Yeah, so we used to write as fast as we could and publish as fast as we could. We never really built a bank, and when we did, it was because for whatever reason...
Building a bank would be accumulating a bunch of stories and then having an intelligent launch plan, just so you're clear.
So even when we did, like there were times that we tossed a couple of books in a bank for whatever, but it wasn't because we had any global strategy or because it was smart to hold off on this book.
It wasn't the bank, it was like the side of the desk where I'll get to this.
Yes. Okay, that's perfect. That's exactly what it was. So now it's very different. We are actually banking stuff. We've talked a lot about how we want to clear out 2020 so that we could start on 2021, and how we were really prepared for 2020 because the first chunk of the year is already done as we closed out last year. So that's the kind of thing we want to get better and better at, and increasingly fluid. But the difference now is that we do want to build a bank, and actually it's non-negotiable. We don't launch an author unless they have not just a bank, but an intelligent funnel to launch from, because otherwise we just have to unpublish it later and do it right. Like there is no shortcut. So consistency is important. And so we know that, the algorithms reset every 30 days and that, people do care. That does matter. So luckily, we have the infrastructure to work with our authors for a long period of time, so they can both improve their craft, improve their skill set, their ability to, get the product done, create it over a long period of time, work collaboratively within the studio, but then they bank. So right now, over the next 3 months, we have four different author names that are dropping, and each one of them will have consistent releases, either every 4 weeks, every 3 weeks, and one even more throughout the rest of the year. But that was up to a year and a half of planning time before that first book was launched in any cases. None of those have less than a year and a half worth of content creation behind them.
Some of the things have definitely not changed at all, but I would say that we're putting more attention on them. So for instance, I would say that a lot of what we've been doing has been with the ultimate goal of keeping us algorithmically clean and are also bots in line. So some of the stuff that Sean just mentioned, you could take at face value, but the real why behind it is that we want the same basic group of people who are perfect for any individual book to be buying that book and then to be buying the next one, or one by an author that's basically in the same sort of area, because we knew that years ago, but we know it increasingly more. People want the same but different, and we don't want to divert at all. And there's a lot of stuff that we've done to kind of say, okay, well, so just as a very simple example without going into the weeds, like, Sean's name kind of isn't on a lot of books because Sean is everywhere. And if we put Sean's name on every single book he touches, that's actually a negative for every book and Sean.
Right. That's a really good example. So I've actually disappeared off a lot of books. Old books that didn't make sense for my name to be on them, my name has gone away. And new stuff that I'm writing, either by myself or with other people, it actually doesn't have my name on it anymore.
He's like the guy at the fertility bank that sneaks his sperm into all the samples.
Wow.
I didn't know that guy at the fertility bank. How do you know that guy, Dave?
His name is Stan. My dad. He's everybody's dad.
Wow, that was funny with layers. Okay, so with that, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave, for always contributing so much to the conversation. It's amazing that you never drop that ball. So yeah, I mean, basically our strategy has been going slower and carrying more, which isn't super sexy. Like, I realize that, but it's learning what we need to do before doing it and just playing a longer game. And what's happening now is we'll be able to ramp up. We'll be able to throw a lot of traffic at our back catalog. We'll be able to, move readers from one place to the other. But like, we moved from Active Campaign to ConvertKit, and that was a big deal. Well, we had to get all of our lists over to a better place that was easier for us to manage and tag. And there's even a little story behind that that's totally irrelevant right now. But the point is, every move that we have made has been really intentional. And another thing that we're doing, and this is easier as we get further and further and further from our runway, and we're able to just have more time and breathing space to think about our projects. We're increasingly building things as in how do we create this book product in a way that makes it really easy to adapt or try and pitch and sell to film or television later.
What's, I think, kind of interesting and maybe a little deceptive at first glance here is that it would be really easy to listen to what we're talking about. And Sean's talking about, well, we drop a book every 3 weeks or every month, or, talking about the number of books we have. And it may sound like go fast, produce a ton. We were at least partially responsible for the whole idea of rapid release, for which we apologize, kind of like the inventor of Infinite Scroll. But really what we're seeing here is, if you pay attention, it really isn't about going faster. It really is about it's about going slower. And I think that is what's going to separate the pros from the amateurs, because, we shit on traditional publishing a lot, because we're like, well, they're so slow. Well, yet here we are doing some of the things without throwing the baby out with the bathwater that they do,
yeah.
Right? Like we're taking a lot more time between writing and publication. We are trying to build 90 days of runway for every author. Like that's very intentional. We don't want anyone finishing a book and then that book publishing more than 90 days, like sooner than 90 days from then, because it gives us time to, first of all, it gives us time to breathe. Like working under pressure. Oh my God, I have to finish that next book right now because otherwise I'm going to fall off the 30-day cliff, is kind of a shit show.
Yeah, it's not just that it's a shit show, it's that it's not fun, and it's
a sad state.
It's a violation of why most awesome. It's a violation of why most people got into the game in the first place, right? We all wanted to tell stories. We didn't want to go to a real job.
And to have fun doing it.
Yes, and then all of a sudden, if that's where you're spending all your time, is like beating your head against the wall because you're writing shit you don't want to write on constant deadlines. By the way, Dave, how's your deadline going on the latest?
Speaking of shit shows, no, I feel like I'm hoping to be done this weekend. So
okay, awesome.
It's coming along.
And Johnny will finish his next book early next week, and it's called Johnny Got His Mojo Back is basically the book.
It feels real good. There may be there's some lessons there too. I don't know that it's like a show because you'd have to be like a read along or something, but I learned a lot writing that book that had been troubling me. So that was kind of cool. Okay. So what was another thing I was going to mention is, and honestly, like this show is maybe a little disappointing because some of the things we're saying are like, well, I want the magic button. Where's the magic button that I can, where's the secret ninja tactic? And we're increasingly seeing that the ninja tactics don't work and are ultimately short-term things that sacrifice the long-term, a lot of them. And we aren't even interested. Like it really is about long-term quality and bonding. And one of the things we were just talking about mailing lists amongst the studio and how, everybody eventually, once they're established, is going to need their own mailing list, but it's going to be different for everybody. And the sort of onboarding needs to be different from what like the market as a whole is doing, but also that variety of different is going to be different for everybody. So like emails 1, 2, and 3 may have the same basic purpose, but they'll be handled totally different because each author is different. So Niney, who has a very like friendly down home relationship with her readers, is going to handle it differently and send pictures of her dog than I will, whereas I might be a little bit kind of like edgy and obnoxious, And so leaning into who you are in the pages and then when you're talking to your fans is just kind of a really subtle and non-sexy way of that turning that long-term flywheel of like how closely are you bonded with your people? How much do they remember you out of the 50 bazillion books that are out there on Amazon or wherever trying to compete for their attention? So just leaning into the list, like what is the big story you're telling with your fiction? What are some of your themes? How do you interact with your people? A lot of that really soft stuff is stuff that I think we've been focusing on a lot too, and stopped doing a lot of the real tactical stuff.
Right, because it hasn't really served us. And something else that I think is worth talking about is our level of experimentation. So we've always been experimenters and we've always prided ourselves on experimentation. But the way that we have experimented is completely different. So what we're doing now is we experiment a lot still, but it's always with purpose. And it's never anything that's outside of the sphere of what we're actually trying to accomplish. So there are no wild, crazy experiments. They're like, okay, well, so for example, there's an audio project that's getting a lot of our experimental attention right now. And we're trying to figure out, like, it's a bandwidth issue. How much are we willing to put into it?
Dave could waste that bandwidth.
Versus what we could, get out of it. And so there is that question to address, but we're not doing any kind of like, wild, crazy experimentation. Like, let's see if we can get leads by writing stuff straight for Wattpad, which might have been something we would have entertained a few years ago, right? We know what works. And the uncomfortable part is that what works takes a long time. What works takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of getting frustrated before you actually see the results. And it's just not as fun or sexy to go get up, and milk the cows every morning. That's it.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear those unsexy things. I learned that when I tried to do a really, really honest product, a really, really honest course when I was doing more of the internet marketing sort of things. And it was just like all about how it's hard work and there's no magic buttons. Guess how well that sold? Like nobody fucking wanted to hear it. I think that something that Sean said a second ago is actually like the cause and effect, or it's both cause and effect is the things. What I was going to say is that we can't experiment quite as much because we're in publishing, which by itself just moves slow, even when it's indie. And just in life, like these things do take time. And when you experiment, you're almost by definition taking your eye off of what you're already doing, right? So like if I want to try a new book promotion tactic, that means, okay, let's pause or at least segment out some of the energy that's going to what we're currently doing to promote books so that we can do this thing over here. And what happened is we were getting like institutional whiplash. It was like, okay, let's try this. Okay, let's try this. And it was always some new thing. And the problem wasn't that we were trying the things necessarily or that they didn't work necessarily. The problem was we didn't give any of them a long enough time to bear fruit. Except
things like Story Shop, which got more time than probably was sensible for us. So that's it. We're being a lot more practical and strategic about everything that we've done. And it's easier to play fast and loose when, it was just the three of us. But now, we always have to ask ourselves why we're doing what we're doing, because we have a whole family to take care of. There's a lot of us now, and there's going to be more. And so it's more like, what is good for the collective? What is sustainable? What sets the best example? What serves our actual goal? And what turns the flywheel?
All right. So here's a question. So we're going to by default speak from our perspective, which is a large perspective for most indie authors. Like we have about 15 people. We're producing a couple hundred books. But most people are not. Most people are like, okay, I'm an individual person. I'm basically working alone. I want to get some attention on my books. I want to be a full-time writer. What do you think the advice is for that person today?
I actually think the advice is the same. It's to care more, to be more patient, to know that if you are trying to just chase algorithms and publish a book a month without preparing for that, or, a lot of the other hurry up to market types of things, it's probably a closer path to burnout. It just happens. I mean, you could think your will is better than that and you can outlast it. And we've certainly seen that happen. But even internally, I mean, Johnny is one of the strongest creators and workers I've ever met, and he burned out, and so, and he burned out while not having to juggle another job, like a lot of people have day jobs.
And I burned out on projects that should have been fun and easy too.
Right. So I think that that's worth exploring. It's, even me, I feel like I've got the best job in the world. I love everything I'm doing right now. And still, this January has been slow for me. Like, I'm just rolling on a project right now for the first time and feeling like, yeah, I got my mojo. 3 days in a row where I'm like crushing on the words. But it's been a long time, and I think there's seasons to all of this. But what can you do as a creator to find the thing that keeps you consistent? And I think that's the biggest thing that we do now that we didn't used to do. Is we used to just have fun. Johnny and I have always flown the genre flag, and we're still doing that. Like, we write all over the place. What Johnny's writing now has nothing in common with what he's writing in a couple weeks, like nothing. And that's interesting, right? We can still stay excited and jump around, but we're not doing it with one pen name to rule all. We're being more practical, and we're thinking about the long-term effects of everything and how our decisions affect decisions down the line.
What about sideways things? So some of the things that we're doing are trying to get attention to, trying to get things to TV and film. I would say that is, that's a more like once you're more mature as a creator, not like mature like Dave's jokes mature, but mature like you've been around, you've done it more, you're a little more stable. But that's a big thing too now, is trying to figure out, since we are having some success in Hollywood, trying to do some more of that. But that's beyond what a lot of people are doing. But that's one more thing, like laterally, where can you...
Well, you can still think like a showrunner though, right? You can still think like, how would I design this book series if I want it to get adapted? How do I make that decision easier? How do I create something that has a character that people want to see on screen so that, they can mention that in the reviews? That's always been very helpful to us, even if it's just on a motivation level. From the very beginning with Yesterday's Gone, when Dave and I, we would get reviews that said, why isn't this on TV? I can see X character, Y character, Z character. I can see these people on TV. This should be on TV.
Yes, it should.
And, eventually when you have a deal on the table and, somebody who's investigating that stuff can go look at your reviews, those are buyers of your product who are telling the big buyer with a much bigger checkbook, what is good or not good about it. So, thinking intentionally about, what are you going to do with your IP 5 to 10 years from now, after you have more of it and it's more integrated? It's a great question to ask yourself early.
Maybe a good way to kind of round this out is to talk about promotion with other authors, which is, because actually this is kind of like, I'm realizing like we called this show things we've stopped doing, and we've talked about things that we've started doing. So it's kind of both. But that said, like we have kind of organized a big promotion that we're doing with other authors. Should we describe that a little bit? I mean, I can give the call to action, but what the thinking there is.
Yeah, by all means, please do. But I would add one more thing just first, which is I think any storyteller can take this away. You know, the book space is very crowded, and that's not going to change. So the question is, how do you stand out? Can you stand out by being better at running ads than everybody else? For most authors, the answer there is no. Can you write a better story? Maybe, but how do you get found? It really is about consistency and figure out what makes you tick, but also know that the future is changing really fast and that there are a lot of avenues opening up for storytellers. Video games are getting way more sophisticated in their storytelling. You know, comics are having yet another, revolution. There's more film and television projects than there's ever been before. And believe it or not, there's even more coming. So there's just a lot of other opportunities for new different kinds of storytelling, and that will be more and more true, especially as we move into like augmented reality, and there will be companies who need storytellers. So even if you want to get out of the indie grind, there is a place for storytellers. Just work on your craft, work on your storytelling, work on your network, work on your ability to tell a story in any space, and that skill will never leave you.
And then, yeah, just to close it up. So one of the things that I think does continue to work is, I mean, basically it's like ads, right? Ads are putting your book in front of an ideal audience so that maybe they'll be intrigued by your conversion elements. If you got your cover right, if you got your title right, and if it looks like something that they would want to buy. And so similar to that, and free in most cases, is to do co-promotions, bundles or deals or, I mean, basically like building your own BookBub. But that's sort of, we're doing a promotion in conjunction with BookFunnel, where we're trying to, those of you in our audience who are writing in some of the same genres as we are, we're curating. Well, how would you describe it exactly? I feel like I'm stumbling all over it, but go ahead.
No, that's it. That is it. It's just a curated bundle. So we're looking at everything and saying, okay, what is the best? Because it's all about experience. Like that's really what we're trying to do. And I don't want to speak to all bundles out there at all, because my experience is pretty limited. But in the experience that I do have, I've seen a lot of bundles that are basically like, who can we get together? It's not necessarily that curated, and the experience is what matters. Like, what are you communicating with this particular bundle? And we're trying to not only do that, but build it as part of our business and get better and better and better at it. So that's another example of experimenting that we're doing, but it has to serve us and it has to serve the audience. And if it's not a win-win and like a big win-win, then it's probably not worth doing. But anytime we do something for, the creative community, we try to think what has the most impact. And, that is it. Visibility is the hardest problem to solve right now. So we're trying to solve that problem for ourselves and for the audience at once. And it's a great example, actually, of how we're trying to really have a symbiotic relationship with the audience. Our nonfiction audience, I think we have a natural relationship with our fiction audiences, but with the nonfiction audience, how do we have a symbiotic relationship where we really do feed each other in the right ways? And how do we keep fueling our own ideas and our own growth so that we can, turn back and give even more back?
So our promo, the details, the entry, requirements, stipulations, anything you would need to know is at sterlingandstone.net/promos. And you can see there basically, like, we're looking for people who are, talented authors who know what they're doing, who write good stories, and who want to join for promotions where we can all benefit. So sterlingandstone.net promos. And that's it. So I actually, we're just kind of on a weird time. We're recording Thursday today, so I'm all off kilter, but we'll see you guys next time for show 101, where we're just going to reset the clock. We're just going to go back to 1, just because hitting 100.
That sounds like the right thing to do.
And yet again, this is our third or fourth 100 show. And there was no on-air suicide. There was no naked show. These are all things that Dave has been threatening.
I am naked from the waist down. I just haven't stood up.
Will you please stand, please?
Another tradition is
please stand up.
Another tradition is renaming the show. So usually when we hit 100, we rename the show. So we're not trying to do that. That's this time.
Can we rename it if we really, really want to?
No.
Damn it. All right.
All right. So thanks for listening to Story Studio Podcast. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Adios.